Good morning, everybody. Sarah here from U Floral. Had some slight technical difficulties, so I'm just gonna hook myself up here. Okay, so I am here, Sarah from U Floral. I also got baby Evan here, and he is needing a nap. So I'm just gonna kind of do this live stream jiggling baby. I also have an IKEA delivery scheduled, so let's see what happens if the doorbell rings. Gotta go to IKEA. I'm gonna show folks here today how to make a boutonniere. And if you're DIYing your wedding flowers, this is a great thing to DIY because it's super simple. Oh, here. It's super simple to DIY your own boutonniere, and it saves you a ton of money. Like florists generally charge like 25, 30 bucks for a boutonniere, but if you make them, you're you are just using the scraps from all your other flowers, so they cost you like pennies to make. So if you have, say, 8 people in your bridal party times 25, 30 bucks each, that is a ton of money that you're spending spending at the florist making boutonnieres. So that's why I just love making boutonnieres. I suggest them to everybody who is going to DIY. Dear Lord. So this is what happens when you are entrepreneur mom with a 4-month-old baby. It's sometimes a lot. So I'm just gonna look here how to okay, baby is losing his mind. So I'm gonna just grab a little vase here. Forgot to put this out earlier. So this is a mason jar. And so when I'm doing my flower arranging, oh, welcome, Sarah, you floral healer, and baby Evan, who is somewhat losing his mind, showing you guys how to make a boutonniere for if you're DIYing your own wedding flowers. So when I'm DIYing my wedding flowers, I am making sure that I keep any sorts of scraps. So sometimes flowers will have like a petal that breaks or a stem that breaks, and so I just always have a handy mason jar, and I put all those scraps in there so that way I don't waste anything, because throwing flowers away is like literally throwing money away in the garbage. So that's why I always just have my trusty mason jar. So let's get down to showing what sort of flowers I have. So here my example about using the mason jar is like a perfect example. So this is a stem here of wax flower, and you would never put that in your bouquet. Like, can you imagine like walking down the aisle with like a bouquet that's got like this bad boy like sticking out, like covering your face? So this wax flower, gorgeous, but in its current state is terrible for a bouquet. So what I would be doing when I'm doing a bouquet is like cutting off these side shoots, and I'm never throwing these away. So I would cut this off, and then I put that in my mason jar, and this is wax flower, just go up a little bit close. So this is perfect for boutonnieres because it has all this beautiful foliage here, but then it's also got these super pretty flowers. So this is a flower that I 100% would order if I'm doing DIY wedding flowers, because you get so much out of this. So if I was using this in my bouquet, I would like take off all these side shoots here, like probably like even down to like here. And then I would just use this top part in my bouquet, and all these little side shoots I'd save in my little mason jar. This is probably more than I need in a boutonniere. So I would have this mason jar with these pretty little side shoots, and I don't know, I might put this like in the bathroom for decor, or maybe put it on the bar or something like that. Of course, I'm never throwing anything away, because throwing away flowers is like throwing away money. So this is one of my definite things that I love to have in my DIY bouquets, is this wax flower. Welcome to folks just joining, showing you guys how to make a boutonniere, but I'm just starting out talking about what flowers I like, and this wax flower is one of my go-tos. So if you wanted this stem like in your bridal bouquet, but you still want some of these pretty little flowers in your boutonniere, I would take off just a side shoot and then use that for your boutonniere. Flowers I would not use in my bouquets, or my boutonniere, sorry, are big ones like this. So this is a these are both Disbud Moms actually. This one here is a spider style, because as you can see, it's got like all these little tentacles. That's why it's called spider. And then this one here is just a Cremone Mom. So I wouldn't use these in the boutonniere because if you imagine, they look giant. So these ones are great for arches. 100% love these in arches because they cover up so much space and volume. And Moms are super affordable, but I would not use these in a boutonniere. But what I would use in a boutonniere is, got my hand here. These are the ones I would love to use in my boutonniere. So for greenery, Parvifolia is my favorite. In fact, I love Parvifolia for any sort of DIY arrangement. So this is one stem here. Parvifolia is a tree, like it's a eucalyptus tree that grows usually in California, or when I visited, I was in Europe, these eucalyptus trees grow like all over Portugal, and some in Canada they don't really grow because it's a little chilly here, but sometimes people have them actually. Oh dear, the baby's gonna go. Some people have them on Vancouver Island because the climate here is a little bit warmer, but this is amazing for using in your DIY flower arrangement. So I would use this in an arch because like look at that beautiful movement. And I'd also use it in a bouquet, but when I was doing a bouquet, I would cut off all these side shoots because imagine like walking down the aisle like this, like a big branch in your face. So I would pull off all these side shoots for my bouquet until I'm left with something kind of like this for my bouquet. And then I have my trusty mason jar here to keep all these spare pieces in. And then I'm going to use some of them in my boutonnieres, but if I have too many, then I have a pretty little mason jar bouquet. So Parvifolia is my favorite greenery to use in boutonnieres. And then I would combine it with some of this greenery off of the wax flower so that I'd have like a 2 greenery combo going on here. Then for my main flower, spray rose is my #1 recommendation for doing a boutonniere. So spray rose is kind of aptly named. It's a spray of roses on a single stem. So this one here has tons of these beautiful little orange blooms. And what I actually really like about spray roses is that there's always some that are closed like this and some that are open. In order to get these roses actually doing this spray, when the roses are coming up, the farmer cuts some of the heads off. So like this, let me turn it. So like this here, that's like a dead head. So when we were using these, you just have to cut off all these dead heads, and then you pull off all these little petals here. And this is my favorite. Sorry, I'm bouncing so much, trying to keep this baby settled, trying to dual task everything. But this one stem of roses can do like 5 boutonnieres. So that saves you tons of money. Oh, come on, baby. It saves you tons of money because you just can use like 1 stem of roses compared to, say, if you did like a ranunculus for the main flower, it's 1 flower per stem, and you'd have to buy like multiple ranunculus. I see a question here. Are these artificial flowers? Nope, these are all real. So I've got, this is a spray rose, and then Parvifolia eucalyptus, and this is wax flower. And then the texture flower that I really lean into is Hypericum. So these are kind of actually the flowers that I like use and recommend people use in like all their DIY bouquets. Hypericum is one of my favorites because of all this cute texture. So when you're putting it in your bouquet, it really adds visual interest by having like all these different sizes and shapes in your bouquet. So I don't know if you guys have noticed here, but I have like a huge variety of textures here. So I've got these cute little balls for the Hypericum. Parvifolia is this beautiful little drapey greenery with lots of movement. And then I've got some kind of spiky greenery here from the wax flower with these little dainty flowers. And then my spray rose is my main accent piece that I'm using here in my bouquets. I mean, you can kind of see here, I'll show you guys a demo of what a Disbud Mom would look like compared to a spray rose. Like you can see the size is like really dramatic. So I would never use this Disbud Mom in a boutonniere, but I would 100% lean into this in my arches. So I've talked at length now about what flowers I'm using when I'm making a DIY boutonniere. And like you can see how much these would sort of cost, like this parvifolia, I'm gonna use like most of it, excuse me, for my like arch or for my bridal bouquet, and then I just have the scraps for my boutonniere. Same with this one here, this wax flower. I'm using it for my bouquet and then the scraps for the boutonniere. So making these yourself is super cost affordable because you're just essentially using your scraps, and then I'm using like one stem of the spray rose to make, I don't know, 5 boutonnieres out of this. So rather than spending like $25 per boutonniere at a florist, I'm spending like $1. And if you're making like 8-10 of these, that's a huge cost savings. So let's talk now about what supplies I'm going to use for making a boutonniere. So if you've watched any of my videos before, you would know that I'm a huge fan of what's called boot sticks. So they're these little magnets. I've got 3 of them here. So they come apart like this and they just clip together. So one side has the flowers on them. This goes on the other side of your suit and they clip like this. And the reason I love these so much is they don't put holes in suits, but also if you are a beginner to DIYing, it gives you a bit of a structure to actually put your flowers on. So you're using this as your backer. And so it's just a little bit easier that you don't have your flowers kind of shifting around. So boot sticks. They come in packs of 7 for about 25 bucks. Losing the baby again. So, I mean, they're not cheap. It adds for sure cost to your boutonnieres, but it makes it way easier. And since your flower cost is super low, I think it's worth it to spend a little bit extra and use these boot sticks just to make it a little bit easier on yourself. And then the essential thing you need, so boot sticks are kind of optional, but essential, you need florist tape. So I've got 2 colors here. It comes in green and white. And so this is not actually sticky until you pull it to activate it. So I'll show you what I mean here. And this tape is good for using to hold together bouquets as well. I actually prefer zap straps, but this works great too. So see how the length of it, and then you pull it, and that's when it's sticky. And if you pull hard, it breaks. So I'll show you guys once more. So this is the tape, pull, and it breaks. So that is how we're going to attach these flowers. And then in other terms of supply, so if you're not using boot sticks, you're gonna need some pins like this. These are just to attach the boutonniere to your bouquet. So I just take my pin, and that's how I would attach it. But I also find, dear baby, I also find when you're pinning on boutonnieres, they tend to shift, like when people are hugging you, whatever. So that's why these boot sticks are also a better option, because they just keep your boutonniere like firmly on your suit. And then ribbon. So I've got a couple different types to show you here. This is my all-time favorite. This is a beautiful like silk ribbon. It's quite wide, so I would actually just cut it down and then tie that onto my boutonniere. Or this one here is a really pretty forest green, but honestly you can use whatever you want. I've seen people not do ribbon at all and then just have the tape. So the tape looks like this. I don't really love that look because the florist tape is not that good looking, but you totally could do that. And then I've got these scissors. These are to cut the ribbon. Dear baby. These scissors to cut the ribbon because the regular pruners like just won't cut ribbon. And then of course, essentially, we need to have pruners to cut the greenery. If you don't use pruners, like scissors are not really sharp enough, so like they won't even go through the greenery like I was showing you guys earlier. Whoop! This parvifolia is like literally a branch off of a tree, so scissors like won't go through this thick wood. And then if you're cutting like roses with scissors, then it doesn't give you a clean enough cut, and then it can't uptake water well. So I would definitely use scissors. Yep, Evan is a little fussy. I think I timed this live at the wrong time. I thought it's his nap time. So I thought, oh, he'll just sleep. Turns out he doesn't want to sleep. Then in terms of some sprays, so I've got this finishing touch. So I'm gonna put this on at the end and just spray my boutonniere. So this is just a floral spray, and it hydrates and protects the flowers, like helps them uptake, like keep the moisture within them, and so that way they just last longer. And then when I'm prepping my flowers, I use here, it's just called quick dip. So as the name indicates, quick dip is just a quick dip. So I take this quick dip just straight out of the jug. I dump it into a mason jar here, just a tiny bit. You only need about like this much in the mason jar. And then I cut my flowers using my pruners, not my scissors. And then I just take the flowers and just do boop, a nice little quick dip into the solution. And then that way the flowers uptake water and they get really nice and hydrated before you put them into your boutonniere. Because when you have them in your boutonniere, they don't have any water source, obviously. So you want them to be in peak condition before you put them in your boutonniere. So I've talked a ton now about everything we need in order to like get going with our boutonniere making, like all the supplies we need and such. So let's actually get going on the boutonniere. So I'm gonna take my pruners here and cut a side off, one of the florets kind of off of this spray rose. So the spray roses often have one that has just a little bud that's closed and it will not open, and then the closed bloom, and I actually love that. I think it adds texture. I'm all about texture in this sort of arrangements. So the spray rose is what I'm gonna use here. You know what, actually now that there's a few people here, I would love if folks can drop in the chat if you can put a number 1 if you are watching this video because you're wanting to make a boutonniere for yourself, or 2 just because you're curious and want to learn about flowers. So 1 if you're going to be making a boutonniere yourself, or 2 if you're just curious. So drop that in the chat. I'm super curious about what our folks are up to. So I've got my spray rose here, and I'm going to go with my parvifolia now. So I am just doing a cut off the side here to get some greenery. And I need to do a little bit of a strip on the bottom because I don't want greenery at the very bottom. So I've got a couple pieces of greenery here. And now I've got my spray rose. And then I'm gonna add in some wax flower. So like I was showing you guys, wax flower has some parts which are just greenery, which I'm gonna cut because I love the texture of this greenery. But I also really love that wax flower has these pretty purple flowers, or they come in white as well. So I also love to use those. So I'm gonna add some in there. And then hypericum, I really like for texture. So when you're flower arranging, you can, I thought I had the baby settled. You can kind of manipulate the flowers how you want. So if you're like looking at this and you're like, oh, this is too many of these berries, that's not a big deal. I just cut them off. I keep everything, although these are really tiny. No, actually, I think I'm gonna use them. I am gonna use it. So I just want a little bit of this, this hypericum here. So I'm making essentially just a little bouquet here. So there's not really a special way to do it. You're just kind of layering it up, and I'm gonna add in the hypericum there. So what I always like to do is put it up to your sort of breast where you're gonna have it and think like, is this the size of what I'm looking for? And I've got a little bit too wild going on here. So I'm gonna take out that one there, and then maybe just shimmy this eucalyptus down a little bit and take off one of those side ones. So at the bottom here, we don't want any of these petals. So I'm just gonna pull them off, sorry, not petals, leaves. So now I've got this here. So this is, I love this combination of wax flower, hypericum is this little berries here, parvifolia eucalyptus is my #1 greenery I use, and then this spray rose. So you can see that these stems are really long down here, so I'm just going to give them a cut to sort of even them out. So this is where I really like using my boot stick. So I'm gonna take my boot stick, and there's a flat side and the magnet side, and I put the flat side up to the back of my boutonniere like this. And this is why I love these boot sticks, is they give you something to like attach to. So it's a little tricky. I just lost my greenery, so I don't know where the other piece went. But anyway, so now when it's on the boot stick, I'll then kind of put it up to my breast pocket and think, is this the size I want? It's still a little bit too big, so I'm gonna slide this boot stick up a little bit higher and then just cut off some of the greenery, or sorry, the stems at the bottom. Now I need to take my floral tape and I'm gonna tape it on. So like I showed you earlier, this floral tape is not sticky until you pull it to activate. So look here, pull it. If you pull it too hard, it rips. So I'm just gonna start with a fresh piece here. I have my little bouquet resting onto my boot stick. I have no leaves in the way because they really can bung up the tape. So we want to make sure there's no leaves in the way. I'm gonna put my tape around the boot stick, and you have to keep pulling it in order for the glue in the tape to activate. So all I'm doing is taking the floral tape and just sliding it all the way down, and then pull it. Then in order to like end it, this stuff is like waxy, so if you just put your thumb over it, the heat from your thumb will actually kind of seal it in. So now it's firmly attached to this boot stick. So I don't have tape over the top part where the magnet is, but I can just take this magnet and clip it like that. So now I have my boutonniere ready to put. So some people will just end it like this and just have like a look at the green tape here. But if you wanted to put ribbon on it, you definitely could do that to kind of hide this green tape. So then you would just take your ribbon and then you just take it and wrap it around your boutonniere like so. Actually, sorry, I'm gonna do it a different way. I would just wrap it around like this and then just tie it off and cut it with my ribbon scissors. So that you can't cut this with pruners, they just won't cut, they're not sharp enough. So that's what you would just do. You can visualize kind of cutting it off. And so then how do you store these? I get asked this question all the time. So there's obviously no water source associated with these boutonnieres. So they are going to wilt and dry out. So that's why you need to make them as close to your wedding as possible. I would make these, say if your wedding is a Saturday, I would make these on a Friday, and then I'd actually store them in what's called a hydration chamber. So it's super easy to make a hydration chamber. If you are DIYing boutonnieres for your wedding flowers, listen up to this part. So a hydration chamber is just a Tupperware container, and then I'm gonna take paper towel. I should have brought some here, but I mean, you guys can kind of visualize the idea here. So you would take a Tupperware container, put a paper towel under water, and then squeeze out the water so it's just damp. You do not want it wet. Put the paper towel in the bottom of your Tupperware container. Then take this boutonniere and you put the boutonniere on top of the damp paper towel. You put the lid back on the Tupperware, and then you put it in the fridge. And then the lid on top of there just kind of keeps it hydrated and a little bit moist in there, and it keeps your boutonniere staying well. Tracy's asking how old is Evan. He is 4 months old, and he really wants to nap. He is like struggling to nap. So I'm just live on the internet bouncing my fussy baby. It's great. This is what happens when you're a mom and a business owner and all the things. So what I would also do is this finishing touch spray. So this is a hydration spray, and it just helps the boutonniere like stay hydrated, because we obviously have a problem here that these flowers in this little boutonniere have no water source. So if you're gonna have these on your suit in the blazing sun in July or whatever, there's no way for these to stay hydrated. So that's why we want to make sure that we're using really fresh flowers. Like, I would not suggest going to the grocery store to buy flowers for boutonnieres because they might be sitting there already for like 4 days before you get them. So if you buy from me, the Floral, we have florist-made flowers that we ship directly to your house. So they are super fresh, and that's important because these have no water source. But there's a couple things you can do to make sure your boutonnieres last as long as possible. So number one is making them as close to your wedding as possible. So a Friday for a Saturday wedding. The second thing is just misting them with this finishing touch spray before you put them into the third thing, which is a hydration chamber. So that's just a Tupperware container that I put a moist towel on the bottom and then put the lid on and put in the fridge. And then the other thing I do to make sure my boutonnieres last long is kind of on the vein of having really fresh flowers is I use this quick dip first. So this is just a florist solution. And so I'm taking the florist solution, I'm dumping it into this little mason jar. You only need about this much. And then as the name implies, you just do a quick dip. So I'll put the quick dip into my mason jar, cut my flowers with pruners, not scissors. Okay, baby. And then I'll just take my flowers and just do a quick dip, like 1 second up. And then that makes the flowers like uptake the water really well. So I would do that quick dip, like 1 second up, put this flower in a bucket of water, and then let it get all hydrated before I'm making my boutonniere. And that way I'm working with like peak hydrated flowers, because once I make the boutonniere, the water source is done. Like, there's nothing more for them to drink. So we want them to be as healthy as possible. So this is my little boutonniere here that I just made. I did it like facing the camera, so it's maybe not my best work, but you can see it's not hard to make. And then it takes me about, I don't know, 5 minutes to make these. If you are DIYing for your wedding and you're making your own boutonnieres, I would definitely suggest going to a grocery store first and just picking up some flowers, so that way you can practice making these. The more practice you get, the better you're going to be on your wedding, and then you can just like whip them up, no problem, on the Friday before your wedding. I don't know what else should I show you? Maybe there's probably some people who haven't been here the whole time. So I'm going to just go through again what flowers I used. I love showing people this actually. So this is a stem of wax flower. It's huge, and you would never actually use this whole thing into your wedding bouquet. Oh, look, as I'm like wrapping up, this baby is like, I'm ready to sleep. I'm not gonna fuss with you anymore. So this giant stem of wax flower, I wouldn't use this all in my bouquet because it's just crazy intense, but it has these beautiful, beautiful little tiny flowers on it. And so when I'm using this in my DIYing, I'm going to just use pieces of it. And this is exactly what florists do. They aren't gonna like discard this and say, oh, it's not the right size for me. Being a florist is like manipulating how the flowers work in order to make a piece of art. So I'm taking off all these little side shoots that are not going to look good and they're too overpowering. And I'm going to store them in a mason jar for later. And I will use them in my boutonnieres, or if I have too many, well then just have a mason jar that has some beautiful flowers in them. And then I will put that like on the bar or the welcome table or what have you. Also, before I continue on with my flower thing, I'm curious where folks are from. So if in the chat, you can put a number 1 if you're from Canada, number 2 if you're from the US, or number 3 if you're from anywhere else. I'm so curious where all you folks are tuning in from today. So 1 is Canada, 2 US, 3 is anywhere else. So let's continue on with my demo of what I have here. So wax flower. And then I've got parvifolia. This is the greenery I always recommend, folks. Oh, somebody asked a question. All the hydration tips were super helpful. Thank you. Happy napping, Evan. Yeah. I mean, now I'm going to like stand like this for like the next hour, or else the child's going to wake up. So I might as well chat with you guys if I'm now like trapped with this 4-month-old baby. So stay along with me while I nap my child standing up. So I'm recommending to folks what to use for a greenery when they are DIY. Parvifolia, my number one. It's Parvifolia, and it's a eucalyptus. It has beautiful movement, as you can see as I'm like waving it around. And the reason I love it is because it has this beautiful movement. So if you stick this in an arch, imagine like this is an arch. You can see how huge it is. But it just is beautiful movement, and it covers a lot of volume because flowers and greenery are expensive. So the more space you can get covered with your greenery, the better. So Parvifolia is a great one to use. It also smells pretty nice, and it is so diverse. It has such diverse uses. So because it has a smaller leaf to it, you can use it in any sort of thing. So I find like, say, silver dollar eucalyptus is another one in this eucalyptus family, but it has really big leaves, like probably like as big as this. And so it's not as useful like say in a bouquet. Lots of people love it in bouquets, but it's really like gives it a eucalyptus forward vibe, if that makes sense, versus if you're using Parvifolia, it's just a little bit more subtle, and then it's perfect for use in boutonnieres because like I mentioned how big silver dollar is, like with a leaf like this big, it really like makes it boom, like this is silver dollar in your boutonniere. And this boutonniere that I just made here, I have the Parvifolia in it, which is this one here. All right, Tracy, you had to leave. Okay. Well, have a great day, Tracy. Thanks for watching me bounce my baby. And Stu, I'm so glad that I was able to be helpful for you for the hydration tips. So this is my Parvifolia here, this little one. And then this here is the wax flower. Wax flower is so great because it gives you kind of like a good bang for your buck. You've got these little pretty flowers here, and then you've also got greenery. So with the wax flower, you kind of get flowers and greenery. I gotta have a drink here, like hold on 1 sec. Okay, spray roses are what I always reach for when I'm doing boutonniere, unless somebody really wants like a really wildflower vibe, then I might go with chamomile. But chamomile would be really pretty, maybe some limonium if you're doing like a wildflower bouquet. But for folks that are looking for like kind of a standard everyday boutonniere, spray roses 100% my favorite, and there's a couple reasons why. So one reason is that there's so many blooms on here. So this one has 5 blooms. Can I count here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 blooms. So that means I can make 5 boutonnieres out of 1 stem. So that, as you can imagine, was way cheaper than if you have to use 5 individual flowers to make 5 boutonnieres. So I could use like 2 stems of spray roses. Some of them have more than others. So this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blooms. Excuse me. So you can get a lot of boutonnieres out of these. And then they always have these little ones that close. So there's always some closed buds, which I think are super pretty because they add a lot of texture to your boutonnieres. So spray roses are always what I use in my DIY boutonnieres. And then I'm comboing that out with some texture ones. Like, oh, I lost one. I don't know if you guys were here when I like dropped something. It was my hypericum. I was planning on putting hypericum in this boutonniere, but it disappeared. This is hypericum here. So if you're wanting to put this in a boutonniere, which I lost it in the chaos, if this is too much for you, you can just take your pruners. Actually, hypericum is like a little enough, you can pull it off. So just pull off a side, and then if you're ever have one that just breaks off like that, not a big deal. I'm just gonna pull it off. And then I don't love the look of the petals on hypericum, so I might just pull those off. I am obsessed with the texture of hypericum. Like people are always like, oh, what flower should I use in my DIY bouquets? And I'm always like, hypericum. And spray rose, and wax flower, and parvifolia. That's all the ones I have here today. I brought like all my standard issue favorites because it's kind of nice for people to actually see what I'm talking about. Like if I tell you, oh, parvifolia eucalyptus, you're like, what does that actually mean? But it's easier if I'm like, this guy, that's parv. So I'm gonna pull off and show you guys. So you can see here like the little baubles on this hypericum here compared to this one has the greenery. So you can totally decide, like they're both really pretty, but you can have it on or not on. Stu, you liked it with the hypericum included. Yeah. And it's a really great one to add some texture in. So I would definitely use it. So let's say, I'm gonna cut it off. I'm gonna show, why don't I do this again? Maybe I'll do it better this time, the second time. Okay, so here I've got my boot stick. Oh, they're so magnetic that they just like attach to everything like your pruners do. So the boot stick is like one side it's flat, and that's where I'm going to be attaching my flowers and greenery to. And then here's my magnet, and one side goes on your suit and then one side has your flowers on it. So these are the boutonniere that I made a bit ago. I should show you guys like how good this tape is. Like I'm trying to take this apart and it is like really tricky to actually find where this tape is. It's just that good. So this is just florist tape. And so you can buy this from a florist or maybe from like Hobby Lobby or Michael's will probably have it. I'm sure Amazon has it. Amazon has everything. So all I did was make a little bouquet here by using like spray rose and wax flower, parvifolia, and this is the wax flower greenery that I was talking about. So like you don't even have to fiddle too much with it. Just kind of make it into a little bouquet, and then let's add in this hypericum. So this is my little bouquet that I've made. Parv is too powerful there. So that's my little bouquet. It's a little bit long here, so I'm going to give it a little bit of a cut. And then the flat side of my boot stick I put on the back of my boutonniere. So you have to put it high enough up so that you don't end up with like a really long boutonniere. So I'm actually putting like the magnetic part up in the flowers, and then it's just the stem part that's on the like stemmy part of the boutonniere, if that makes sense. So I'm putting it like nestled it right up there. And then I'm gonna take my floral tape. So I pulled it last time, and when you pull it, you can see that it gets like janky at the ends, which is not amazing. So if you actually cut it, I don't think it actually will cut with these pruners. Probably need regular scissors. Ugh, I didn't bring regular scissors. And I'm not gonna use my ribbon scissors because that's just like death for ribbon scissors. But this is not sticky until you pull it to activate it. So what I'm gonna do is I've got my boutonniere, like the back all nestled in, like this is all the way up into the flowers. I'm making sure that on this stem where I'm actually wrapping it, I have no leaves. And then I'm gonna take this tape, take one finger to hold it down, and then I'm gonna wrap it around and around. So the tape is not sticky unless you pull it. So I have to keep even pressure on this the whole way down. Oh, you were back, Tracy. Nice to see you. So now I'm gonna pull it, and then we have this little kind of tail here. So I just put my finger on it because this is waxy. If you put your finger on it, it just like makes it stick onto itself. And then I have too much stems sticking at the bottom here. So I'm just gonna cut these off. And then now I have my boutonniere again, but this time it has the hypericum on it. And then this is the backer, and I can just clip it on like this. And then voila, here is my boutonniere. So this floral tape is awesome. Like I don't think you can really do it without it. Like if you tried Scotch tape, it would be like the world's greatest disaster. So you have to have this floral tape. You don't have to use the boot stick, but as you could hopefully see by me doing it, like it gives the stability to this boutonniere, so it's not as wobbly. And if you're doing this for the first time, it's really nice to have that stability. So there you go. Now I have my boutonniere with the hypericum in it that I lost last time. And then I'm just gonna use this finishing touch floral spray. I don't wanna spray it right now because I have a sleeping baby, if you can hear him like snorting away. So I don't wanna really spray finishing touch and spray him and have him wake up and scream. But that would provide hydration to this boutonniere. I would actually use this finishing touch on my arches, on my bouquets. Really, I use it on everything that I need to have hydration for, particularly if I'm having a wedding in a really hot area. So there you go. I made it through the live with my baby, and he didn't squeal too much. So there you go. If you guys liked learning from me on my live, I'm trying to do more of these. It's kind of challenging when you have a baby that you need to sort out. But if you guys like tuning in live, I'm going to try to do this every week and teach you something new. What would you guys like to learn? Can you drop it in the chat? Would you guys like to learn about, I could teach you guys like what supplies you need in order to DIY. I could teach you guys about what flowers are my favorite, teach you about hydration tips. Like, what would you guys like to learn? Like, if you can drop it in the chat, then I can like tailor my teachings. I love teaching folks, so let me know what you want to learn about, and then I'll do lives or videos. Thanks, Stu, for the kudos. Thanks for staying. You stayed the whole time. It was amazing. That was a little, I was like, honestly, I was like, I think I might just have to quit because this baby is going to scream. But he somehow lasted, and you guys lasted. And thank you so much for engaging with me. It means so much. And have a great day, everybody. Talk to you later.